There's an English movie with Keira Knightley, the lady who was in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's called Bend It Like Beckham. I created an article after filming Rebecca. She's called Becky. I call it Bend It Like Becky. You need to bend the elbow like Becky here. And that is what I'm going to show you today in order to significantly improve your swimming as we consider part 4 of our swim smooth stroke correction hierarchy, the catch and pull through. Let's get to it. Welcome back to week 4 of the swim smooth stroke correction hierarchy. I've got a cracker for you this week, arguably my personal favourite aspect of the stroke and the one I enjoy coaching the most. I hope it shows and would love for you to share this video wide and far with your friends, swimming buddies and even your coach too. Make sure you report back in the comments below so that I can get back to you and give you some further feedback on your own stroke. So here is a quick summary of the 3 stages of the swim smooth stroke correction hierarchy we've covered so far: breathing, drag and alignment. For breathing, we've learnt the necessity to exhale underneath the water to help reduce the buildup of CO2, carbon dioxide, and the addition of unwanted buoyancy in the upper body, especially for those of you with sinky leg syndrome. We've looked at the benefits of being able to breathe to both sides, noting that this doesn't necessarily mean bilateral breathing every 3 strokes all of the time, and the importance of timing so you're not propping yourself up and therefore compromising the way you catch and pull through. For reducing drag, we've looked at the 5 ways in which you can help to keep the body more horizontal in the water, including exhaling, head position, what to do when you go to breathe, how you pull through, and even your level of flexibility and how that impacts your drag. Yes, I'm looking at you, Mr. Stiff Ankles and Mrs. Tight Hip Flexors. For your alignment, we considered how your hand reach, your hand entry, your hand depth, and your hand direction all impact on your ability to swim straight, and just as importantly, how well you can then propel yourself through the water. This week, we're going to be discussing the 4th stage in the stroke correction hierarchy, your catch and pull through. Cue the best stroke in the world, in my opinion, Becky Adlington. The catch and pull through phase of the stroke really encompasses the full phase of the stroke from the initiation of the catch right through to the exit of the hand by the hip. Here's a quick run through from our best-selling Swim Smooth book published in 2012 by Wiley and Sons. It's my favourite aspect of the stroke to discuss and coach. Here we go, from the book. Let's examine the movements of a good catch and pull through, step by step. The hand enters the water cleanly using a spear hand entry with the fingertips and palm angled and facing downwards. The arm extends straight forward, aligned with the shoulder. During arm extension, the fingertips stay slightly lower than the wrist and the wrist slightly lower than the elbow at all times. This is momentary and easily missed when looking at video analysis of great swimmers, but it is there. The elbow bends and the forearm becomes much more vertical in the water. As the hand travels under the head, the pull phase is entered with the hand and forearm now facing directly backwards. For distance swimming, the depth of the pull is such that the elbow is bent somewhere between 100 and 120 degrees. The hand does not cross the centre line or move outside elbow width during the whole stroke action. We often refer to this as swimming down a narrow corridor. As the hand moves towards the back of the stroke, the palm is kept facing straight backwards. At the rear of the push, the hand is turned slightly inwards towards the thigh to finish the stroke as the hip on that side rotates upwards. The arm exits once it has extended to around 150 degrees of elbow bend. Note the arm is not fully extended with the elbow locked out. Now don't worry if that all seems like a lot of information or even a bit overwhelming. The key thing is to remember that you are trying to press the water back behind you during the catch and pull through phase underneath the water. Using a good mix of key drills and visualizations, as we'll go through next, will help you tune into these movements and get a good feel for them. A quick word of caution, you might find the next section of the video today a little bit more in-depth and nuanced, but don't sweat it. I'll do my best to hold your hand, guide you through, and give you plenty of useful examples. And if you've been following us for a while, you might even have a crusty copy of this little old chestnut kicking around. And if not, you can stream this whole thing right now from swimsmooth.guru. Roll the tape, maestro, to whet your appetite and get a little jiggy with the catch and pull through. When we released the Swim Smooth Catch Masterclass DVD in 2010, we were inundated with thousands of sales from right around the world of this special video. Sorry Mother Smooth, which seemed to really strike a chord with the swimming community for what we coined as the most elusive part of the freestyle stroke, and echoed the key message of our blog to improve your feel for the water. Judging by my day-to-day coaching on the deck here in Perth and my specialty area of video analysis and stroke correction, the popularity of the Catch Masterclass DVD made sense, as I'll never forget one funny story of a guy who'd been swimming in the squad for years at that point. Let's call him Steve. Steve was one of the only swimmers in the squad who'd never elected to have a one-to-one video analysis session before. I'm a crap salesman and would never force a session on anyone, but Steve certainly needed help with his stroke. However, upon finally booking the session and rocking up on the deck, he confronted me by informing me quite directly, as is the way of the Australian male typically, I don't want to learn about the breathing, body position and alignment bullshit. I just want to learn how to pull harder, mate.
That's a lovely accent you have. New Jersey?
Australia.
Well then, good day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Let's not. Let's focus on the stroke. Thanks, Jim, all the same. The barbie can come later. I explained to Steve that really a good catch comes as a function of A, setting yourself up with the right alignment, cue last week's video, B, executing the right mechanics of the catch, cue Becky Adlington and co, and C, assessing the impact that these changes have on the rhythm and timing of the stroke. Cue the final stage in our Swim Smooth stroke correction hierarchy, coming at you faster than a speeding bullet next week. These three aspects are so important to understand, and really they all hinge on the work of the hand entry and alignment that we discussed last week. So if you haven't watched that yet, don't do a Steve, watch it now. It's really important. Go on then, go now. Shoo! Swim coaching, and especially teaching folklore, still says to this very day that describing an S-pull shape underneath the body is an efficient way to pull through and propel yourself forwards. This purportedly increases the length of the pull pathway via a series of sweeps in and out of the hand as it makes its way from the initiation of the catch right through to the rear, as we see Mark Foster, swimming extraordinaire, doing here. Now, I used to swim with Mark, and by that I mean I was in the same lane as him as a puny triathlete at the University of Bath, knocking out distance sets in the pool, whilst Mark, the bronzed Adonis that he was and still is, would fly up and down the pool at lightning fast sprint speeds. That all said, since starting Swim Smooth in 2004, I have never agreed with this depiction of the stroke. One of my major issues with it has always been that it promotes a thumb first entry into the water, which can be bad for the health of your shoulder, as discussed last week. It also doesn't accurately account for the rotation of the body in 3D space. The S-pull shape considers a movement path relative to the body, which is fixed, ignoring the fact that the body should roll along the long axis of the spine, which serves to cancel some of the lateral movement of the hand and arm relative to the body. I launched Swim Smooth on Tuesday, the 21st of December 2004 at the Challenge Stadium in Perth. I titled this first presentation, The Art and Science of Efficient Freestyle Swimming. This made a lot of sense to me based on my experience to that point. I was a graduate of a well-regarded sports and exercise science degree course which gave me a level of understanding of the biomechanics of a range of different sports. This, combined with the iterative processes and empirical research I had gone through as a coach over the last 3 years in Perth, helped to balance the hard science with what I was seeing in reality, and to allow me to experiment and even be a little bit playful in crafting ways to help a range of swimmers. It wasn't until well over a decade later that Barry Eves, now 87, passed me this book, an original copy of the 1968 book, The Science of Swimming by James E. Councilman, and said he thought I might find it interesting. Believe it or not, and somewhat ignorantly of me, I'd never seen this book before. Interestingly enough, even this book is not the first reference to the art and science of swimming. The Journal of Health, Physical Education and Recreation ran an article in 1961 on this topic, albeit for officiating swimming. But I digress. On the website councilmanhunsaka.com, the author is described as having had more of an impact on the sport of competitive swimming than anyone else in history, and I'd agree. James E. Doc Councilman, PhD, affectionately nicknamed Doc, was the head coach of the United States men's swimming team that won 9 out of 11 gold medals in the 1964 Tokyo Olympics and 12 out of the 13 in the 1976 Montreal Olympics. Doc actually passed away 11 months prior to the launch of Swim Smooth and is regrettably one of the people I'd have most liked to have met in swimming but never actually did. Unfortunately for Doc, he became synonymous with the S-pull shape. Whereas if you actually read in black and white what he said way back in 1968, and more importantly how he said it, you'll realise two things. One, his observations were purely that, observations, not necessarily dogma. And two, he recognised the need for individual variance in how someone pulled through. Plus, don't forget, this was a book written 55 years ago, nearly half a century before the advent and ubiquity of modern day video analysis equipment. That all said, he did make this remark on page 43, which I just can't pass up as it leads nicely into next week's video. Doc said, "The glide or catch-up stroke was popularised in the early 1930s and it probably set crawl swimming back by 20 years. More on that next week. Clearly, Doc was a man ahead of his time, and it's just a shame that not everyone listened to whom many believe to be the godfather of swimming biomechanics. Now, if you're still not convinced that the S-pull shape is not only a thing of the past, but that it also never actually was a thing in the first place, just something that had been misinterpreted by a large number of coaches and swimming teachers right around the world, the website coachsci.sdsu.edu Coaching Science Abstracts, which claims to promote evidence-based coaching content and procedures, and that was written and produced by Brent Russell, PhD, of the San Diego State University, who has wrote 59 books and technical manuals and has had 162 referenced articles and book chapters published and has produced close to 15,000 online abstracts and articles. Wow! Produced an absolutely brilliantly constructed argument on this matter, looking at the efficacy of using cartoons to describe how someone should pull through. Unfortunately, I also never met Brent Russell either, who sadly passed away last August 2022, but he had this to summarise on the matter. To understand the more accurate reproduction of movement patterns, it is important to study the paths relative to the water and to discard the confusing and unreal relative to the swimmer cartoons. There is no exact ideal path of hand movement pattern in crawl stroke. There is no common path that includes in and out sweeps. Let's compare Kieran Perkins' left arm with Alexander Popov's left arm on their pull through. So we have Kieran Perkins here, distance freestyler, pulling with a very straight pull pathway, versus Alexander Popov, a sprinter, pulling through with more of an S-pull shape. Clearly there's some difference between these two great champions. Such descriptions are a figment of an author's imagination or selectivity of data to fit a preconceived notion. There are too many influential variables that cause intra- and inter-individual variations. What then should a swimming coach teach? One productive avenue would be to ensure swimming techniques of individuals adhere to productive principles of biomechanics, focusing on what, rather than how propulsion is achieved, would accommodate individual needs and idiosyncrasies in movement paths. Thanks, Brent. So on that note, let's look at what you can do to improve the mechanics of your catch and pull through underneath the water based on these principles of biomechanics. In the original Swim Smooth DVD, I had this section about the value of visualization when it comes to literally imagining yourself swimming with a better freestyle stroke. It was a very popular section of the DVD. Over the years, these images of the catch are ones that I've used with my swimmers and also use frequently myself too when I swim. First up, here's Becky Adlington. Look at how she's engaging the large lat muscles and pressing water backwards, bending the elbow to 110 degrees on every single stroke. More from Becky in a minute. Here's a similar shot of Jodie Swallow gathering the water too. And look at this one of Lucy Charles. What an amazing shot. Here's Lucy pulling herself along the Hoob MAD system in Mallorca to assess her force production as well. Not a bad visualization all in itself. Here's Ian Thorpe. Look at that. Wow. Katie Ledecky looks like she's smiling. I would if I was swimming that fast. Here's Mr. Smooth just initiating that catch position. Notice how different that is to Phil the Overglider. Oh, and here's Becky again as well. I love this shot by Finis too. It's just so clear. Here's Coach Annika in London, taking the visualization that I showed her of reaching over a spherical object to press water backwards. And who can forget Grant Hackett's stroke? Amazing hold and feel for the water. And now here's Shelley Taylor-Smith. Now let's look at double Olympic gold medalist and former world record holder Rebecca Adlington in comparison to a swimmer called Lars from Germany. I filmed this footage with Becky in 2011 and to date it's still one of my favourite examples of what a good catch should look like. And I hope this 5-minute sequence inspires you to try these 2 drills to refine your own catch. This first lap here, there is a lot of power in the legs there going through. You can see it here, look. Now compare that leg kick, for example, to this lady here. So 7 times world marathon swimming champion, 6-beat kick like yours off the wall, and then all of a sudden, look. It's quite different, right? If you're kicking as hard as what you're doing there, you're just going to chew through those oxygen reserves immediately. And that's why when you stopped, I said, everyone come around and listen to Lars. It's not fitness, it's because you've overly utilised the legs. The big thing that I said from a technical perspective in your stroke is the difference between you breathing left and right. This left arm, you can see it does like a little bit of a turn out. Watch the impact on the pull through. Almost perfectly straight for a very, very long period in time. And then we get the right hand coming in. This right one goes wide. So that needs to come a little bit more underneath the body. But if we just play it in slow motion, there's a lot of lean on that left arm and a lot of pressure on that left shoulder. You can sort of see how the hand almost waves around in the water. Now let's compare both arms to this lady here. Rebecca Adlington in this video clip is swimming at 1 minute 12 per 100. Funny enough, if you had actually set off side by side with her, you would have actually beaten her to the end of the first lap. And that's a double Olympic gold medalist. Yeah. But watch the leg kick, much less leg kick. Just tap, tap, tap. Not so much from the knee. When you see her from the front, look, very different.
I'm very straight.
You're very straight and she's very, very bent there. So there's an English movie with Keira Knightley, the lady who was in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's called Bend It Like Beckham. I created an article after filming Rebecca. She's called Becky. I call it Bend It Like Becky. You need to bend the elbow like Becky here. The interesting thing with this is that she'll do this same thing, look. Even when she's breathing, look, it's the same. When you're breathing, we're really pushing down on that straight arm. So the reason she can generate so much speed without having to rely upon the legs is for the same reason that when we stood up on the side of the pool and I got you to push down like this versus this, she pulls through like so and she's able to use the pecs and the lats to pull through. In your case, you're pushing down, it's all upon the shoulders. How'd you go with the pool boy? Do you use pull buoy in the training sessions and things?
I'm half the speed.
Half the speed. Okay, well there we go. Yeah. The important thing to recognise is that you don't need to become stronger to go better with the pull buoy. A lot of people think it's a strength thing, but it's not. If you can bend the elbow and gather the water like Rebecca was doing, it's going to take the load off the shoulder there. Most people will find that give them a pull buoy, they feel easier and they are faster. And the reason you feel easier and faster is because suddenly you're not having to use the legs at all. But if the leg kick is your primary source of propulsion, which it appears to be when you're going fast, taking that away is why you then slow down. Of those swim types earlier on, I would classify you here as a kick-tastic. The two drills which I would do, I call this the kick-tastic sequence. This drill with the pull buoy between the legs and sculling. Let's look at why you don't like it, okay? I'm doing it here and I'm moving quite fast down the pool. See how my fingertips are deeper than the wrist and the wrist is deeper than the elbow. I'm doing this. In your case over here, your elbow is deeper than the hand. It's like this, and we're using that left arm like a lever to lift and push up to breathe to that right side. If in this video clip, I now do what you're doing, so watch this. So this is correct, I'm moving forwards. Now I'm going to drop the elbow and do what you're doing on the left here, and now I'm going backwards. You see the difference? How to then bend the elbow better, I said it as a sequence. So a little bit of sculling, and then this one here. We call it doggy paddle. I don't know if you what you call it in German, but it's like a dog. Like a dog would swim, like this, you know? And you can see that you're moving quite fast. So what I'm thinking about is, I imagine there's a rope underneath the body and I'm holding onto the rope. So the nice thing with this drill is that you can see what you're doing and you want to imagine you're doing this, bending the elbow and pulling yourself along. So the sequence then would go like this: 12.5 meters sculling, 12.5 meters doggy paddle, into your freestyle, and with the last 12.5 meters, let the pull buoy pop out, bring your leg kick back in, but not the like this, just a nice steady kick where your focus is still on the catch at the front there. And that would be a really good way for you to try to tune that up within your swimming. Finally, let's look at the range of how swimmers tend to pull through, and equally how you should be finishing the pull through at the exit by the hips with this little analysis that I did today with Chris. That arm is pulling out very wide on that left hand side, so really it should be lined up underneath that shoulder there. Believe it or not, I've got an even better example than this of somebody whose arm is literally at like that wide. And then I had a guy for a session last night whose arm was like right the way across here. So we've got the full spectrum. Okay. That's where it needs to be, right in the middle of that spectrum there. So again, let's go back to slow motion on this. It goes out wide, and just see it goes off the frame there. And then what I tried to get here was a shot, there we go. Oh, yeah. There, right there at that point. I was just talking to one of the girls in the squad, Beck, this morning, that she's been getting a little bit of elbow soreness. And usually that's as a symptom of actually overextending at the back and locking the elbow out. You're not doing that, you're actually exiting with the elbow bent, so it's not at full extension. We know that this arm is pulled through quite wide, we just saw that from the other perspective. Let's just track it here, look. So there it goes out wide, comes in, and I would also say it finishes quite wide there as well. Yeah. Tips the fingertips down, but if we now concentrate on the back of the stroke, what you're going to start to see here, Chris, is this hip rotating up and out of the way, and her hand finishing much closer towards the hip than yourself. We haven't got the camera looking from that position, but I would estimate that the gap is probably more so like this, as opposed to what you've got there, which is like that.
Last session we talked about, like, you know, actually almost touching my thighs as the hand comes through, and clearly that's not happening.
Not happening on that. It's certainly not on the left hand side. The right hand, if you just whiz it back around to here, look. So the right one, it ends up sort of pulling out, like, so it's reasonable position there, nice little bend, then straightens out. And then, even that side look is quite wide from the hip there. If you look at the alignment of your body and that black line there, There's our, literally the T there, right? Watch how the hips shift slightly off in this direction as that hand finishes wide. Everything's just like shifted off in that direction. It's almost like the whole body, it's like there's none of you here, there's like a lot of you there. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, we'll jump in now. We'll go through a couple of these little things here and have a little bit of a run through and see what of a difference we can make. I thought Sally had a heart attack then for a moment.
Jesus.
Wow, she's getting really into it there.
What hope do we have if you have that hope, sir?
That's right, exactly. Super fit. Okay, slide your fins on. Right. So all we're going to do down to the far end of the pool, we're just going to swim down there with this nice neutral position with the hands. So fingertips are together, thumbs are into the side, but it's not tense and rigid. You almost want to imagine that your hand is taking the form of one of these paddles, and we will use these a little bit later on. But obviously when you're swimming with this paddle, I'm always encouraging people to keep the fingertips in the shape of that paddle there. So that's all we're going to do. Focus on nothing else. You can go bilateral breathing, that's fine. Okay, and I'll talk to you as we go along. So just normal freestyle. Let's go straight down that black line. So bring those thumbs into your fingers. That's probably the first thing to do. Bring your thumbs into your fingers. Just move it a little bit. Yeah. If you sort of almost rest it over your ear or somewhere closer. Test, test, test. Is that working there, Chris? Yeah. Yeah, good. All right, here we go. So thumbs into your fingers, close them up. That's better. Close it up on that left side. Thumbs into your fingers. Good, there we go. So you just want to feel your thumb against your fingers. It doesn't need to be a tight grip, but just that awareness. And that's all I want you to think about right now, is thumbs on your fingers all the way through the stroke. So from hand entry to hand exit. Good. Let's think of this as our base point. Good. Just starting to open up towards the end there. So it's clearly something that you have to think about.
I can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything? Let's have a look.
Let's go around.
Oh, yeah, maybe you had it the wrong way around, yeah. Test it. Yes.
One final note per my instructions last week about not overthinking all of this. Here's a cute little parody animation someone did up circa 2009 with some sage advice on making sure you actually get in the pool and practice this stuff.
Hi, sweetheart.
Why do you always seem to be wearing that lycra kit these days?
I am a triathlete. I get changed in the car on the way home. It's fantastic. It has microfiber technology and I wouldn't want to squander wear time. I had to keep the sessions up and I have still got to learn to swim. Looking at Mr. Swim Smooth is not the same as actually spending time in the pool.
Yes, swimming is a big issue for you, isn't it? How long are you going down the garage for? When you get in you will spend an hour on the internet talking to your weird friends.
The forums are important to me as I learn more from those that are experienced in the art of triathlon. I also log my sessions on the internet to allow me to see how far I have come and how far I have yet to go.
Will it tell you when you are about to be divorced?
Thanks for watching. I'm hoping you found this video super informative and inspiring to help you improve the fourth stage of our Swim Smooth stroke correction hierarchy, the catch and pull through. Stay tuned for next week when we'll be going through the fifth and final stage, all to do with your rhythm and timing. If you like what you've seen today, please do tell your mates about it, share the love around, like and subscribe to the channel. It helps massively and I'd be very, very grateful for that. Thank you for watching. Catch you next week.